Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tim Clinton here for Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. You know, the news comes in all kinds of shapes, sizes, and formats these days. But how do you cut through the noise and get to the heart of the matters that affect your family? Come to Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk and sign up for Dr. Dobson's monthly newsletter. You'll find clarity on tough issues, encouragement for your everyday life, and trusted principles to help you build strong, healthy, connected families. Go to drjamesdobson.org. Sign up today. That's drjamesdobson.org.
Today on Family Talk.
Nowhere in the Bible is there a verse that suggests that our lives will be without hardship. However, there are plenty of references where God promises to be at our side through whatever circumstances we might face. Welcome to Family Talk, the radio broadcast division of the James Dobson Family Institute. I'm Roger Marsh with your host, as always, best-selling author and child psychologist, Dr. James Dobson. Today you're going to hear the conclusion of Dr. Dobson's fascinating conversation with Diet Eman. She's a Dutch Christian who was imprisoned during World War II for her resistance to the Nazi regime. Diet helped smuggle ID cards and rations to Jews trying to escape the Germans. Eventually, she was caught by the secret police and sent to a concentration camp. Today, she talks with Dr. Dobson about how she trusted God and His faithfulness throughout her time in captivity. She'll also discuss her life after the war and the advice that she gives people who are oppressed today. Let's listen now to their stirring conversation right here on Family Talk.
Your fiancé, Hein, was shot or was he starved to death?
If you couldn't work anymore, and they told that he was very weak by the time because he had survived those two horrible camps with nearly nobody came out. And then he was dragged to Dachau. And they told me that he was taken out of the barrack on a Sunday evening and never came back. And that was January 20, 1945. And you know what happened? This is so strange. I was at a farm, and that farmer had to take 6 people from Arnhem. Arnhem was bombarded, had to evacuate, I don't know how many, 150,000 people. And the Germans just marched in the houses there in that area and said, you farm, you take 6 people, you take 4. And we had Jews at that farm, but then they got, fortunately, a good... It was so a dangerous time. We had all them, who do we get? It could be pro-Nazi people, and we had Jews everywhere. But this farmer, where I was often, took 6 people in, and it was on the beautiful room. That it's a big room, and they only use it with weddings and funerals. And they put a big double bed. And the daughter of that family was 2 years older than I was, so she had to sleep in that bed. And that was my address for if I was in that area. So if I was there, I always had to hop with Annie in that same bed. We slept in a double bed. And I remember it was bitter cold because there was no heating anymore. And it was January 20, and I came there, and I had such an unquiet feeling. And instead of climbing in bed, and it was bitter cold, I was just pacing that large room. And Annie said to me, "Did come in bed?" I said, "You know what? There is something with Hein." I said, "He's terrible sick." I said, "There is something with him. I feel it." And I didn't know the date. I said, "What date is it?" She said, January 20. I said, "When he comes back, I'll ask him if he was very sick." That was the night he died.
Oh, my.
Can you believe it?
How long had it been since you had seen him?
I had seen him the last, and he was just before he was arrested. I had seen him the last April 23. And he went from where I saw him, it was a Sunday, and we hadn't seen each other maybe in 6 weeks because he was the leader and he was always traveling. And I had a section where I had to take care. And he wrote me a note. He said, "It's not good that we don't see each other. Be Saturday night on that and that farm." And he had inquired because we could never go where people knew us, of course, so he said, "I've checked, and in Amersfoort, in that church, they have communion, and I'll pick you up Sunday morning on my bike, and we go to communion, and then we have dinner with the other leader." There were only 2 leaders, and he was 6 years older. He was married, and they had a little baby. And he said, "Then we have dinner there." So that happened, and it was April 23. And we had dinner, and after dinner, the farmers always take a nap. And we went on our bikes, and just it was the first day that the flowers from the fruit trees came out. And it was like he had a feeling that it was the last time. He told me everything about the work that he had never done, and I didn't really even want to know it. And then he pulled out his Bible and he read for me John 14, "In my Father's home are many mansions." And then we prayed together. And then on that little country road, we always avoided the big roads. He brought me back to the farm where I was supposed to sleep, and he had to go to Friesland. And it was so strange, and people maybe think that I'm nuts. But we were on our bikes, all alone in that country road, and the trees blooming. And I clearly heard a voice say, and you don't know Dutch, it said, "Kijk nog maar goed naar hem." That means, have a good look at him. And it was like a voice, and I thought, this is crazy. So I went, I heard it again. And then he was very tall, over 6 feet, and I looked up, because this was so strange, and he started laughing. He said, "What are you staring at me?" And I did not dare to tell him. And he brought me to the farm, and it was the last time I saw him.
The last time you saw him. And you had wedding plans. How soon? You were going to get married as soon as the war was over?
We should already have been married, but we took our wedding license out just before that they came to arrest us.
And he died almost 3 months to the day before the end of the war. I mean, if he could have hung on just for another few days, he could have been free. Well, those days are long gone, Diet, and the Lord is sure using you now. You speak 7 languages, I understand.
I studied 7 languages. I started studying Russian in the war. I thought the next war will be against Russia. I can at least, and I didn't tell anybody. I thought if there is a war, then they don't know it, but I can hear what the enemy says.
Are you serious? That's why
honest, I did. And I took, I think, a year and a half, and then our teacher, Hein, also first. And and then I took it, but our teacher was a white Rus, and he was arrested, and he was also killed in a camp. And then I later found another lady, and I had more classes. And so I studied it 3 years, and at that time I could read and write it, but if you don't keep it up, you forget it. You know?
Do you still love the Lord?
Oh, yes. He does so much.
You have a personal relationship with him?
Oh, I wouldn't know what to do without him. No, and I find every time that he is, apart from love, that God has a sense of humor. Do you find that?
Oh, I certainly do. I do.
I hate to say this, but some time ago, I followed with the navigators 1 year through the Bible, and I think I want to do that. I need a discipline, but I had to be early. I didn't have a physical, so I had to be at 7:30 at the doctor. And if I don't do it right in the morning, my days are so busy, that day flew, and the day got busy, I didn't do it. So the doctor said, tomorrow morning, without breakfast, to the lab. That day I didn't do it, and I hate to say it, before you know it, I think about 8 or 9 days had passed, and I hadn't. And I felt so guilty. But this was crazy. I had to go very far, and I was 79, and I was sitting in my car, and I was griping to God. Have you forgotten that I'm supposed to be retired, and I have no time to read a book, and I've cancelled the paper, and I've this and that and that. And I was griping, and all of a sudden it stopped. I think, idiot, it's you. You don't know your priorities. So I thought, when I come home, I'm taking where I'm supposed to be today and read that. It's always 40, 45 minutes. And then I'll take also one of where I'm behind. I come home, I'd been sitting and griping that I was 79 and so busy, and if God had forgotten I was retired. And I opened the Bible where I'm supposed to be. Guess what? Moses was 80 when he led the Israelites out of Egypt.
Right?
Now,
that's the Lord's answer to you.
But then I start laughing. I think, Lord, you're telling me something I haven't even started yet. But do you find those things?
Oh, I do. And
it terrific?
He always surprises me. I never know exactly where he's taking us, but he is... he is the sovereign Lord, and he knows what he's doing, and I've learned to yield to him.
Now, see, there were 175 women in that barrack, and many there were Jewish girls in the beginning, and they were evangelizing. And when they were speaking, there was always a large crowd around them if the guards weren't watching. But I had my God, and also I'd found that they everywhere had spies to find out who I was. So I had to act a role. I became a loner. And there were two, a lone person. And I didn't want anything because in the barrack were two people who had been in Paramaribo in Suriname, where on my false papers I was supposed to be born and I didn't know a thing about it. Yeah. And then one was a very famous film star or actress, Annie Meunier. And I said, why is Annie? She went through the whole world on her, trips. And I said, why is Annie here? And then they said she's engaged to a German. And I thought, anything with German, stay away. So I didn't trust her. And then Annie Meunier hears from Willy Luijman, was born in Suriname, where I'd never been. And she comes up to me and she says, Willy, I hear you were in Suriname. I said, yes. He says, did you see me when I said, no, my dad had long leave and we were away, but I didn't know. And then she said, no, where did you live? I didn't know a street name in that city. So I said, sorry, I have diarrhea. So I stormed to the bathroom and I was, Lord, what am I going to do? She'll come back, And then the Lord was very good. There was a lady in her early 40s and the woman she radiated sadness. So I kept my eye on her and they lived in Paramaribo. And I thought, you are safe because you saw the suffering. And that lady got diarrhea and she ran to the bathroom and there were 10 toilets right on a row. So I pretended that I had it too. And I sat next to her and I said, don't ask any questions. Will you please tell me everything about Paramaribo? And she told me, I said street names and everything. So she told me. So after that, I was ready for Annie Meunier. But I think how God takes care.
Yeah.
Huh? Isn't it amazing? And then she came back to me. And I always dreaded it, but then at least I knew some stuff.
The name of the book is Things We Couldn't Say by Diet Eman. What's behind the title?
Jim Scaap chose that, and he said at that time you couldn't talk about it, so we couldn't say it. And he said afterwards, for many years, you didn't want to speak it, so you couldn't say it. So that's how he felt. But the book was translated in Dutch and into German. And then in 1996, I was asked to come to Germany, speak for churches, colleges. And when they found out my German was good, I was asked to speak for the biggest radio station in Stuttgart that covered half Germany. And then they told me, speak clear because Berlin wants to buy it. And on Kristallnacht, November 9, we want to send it out over whole Germany. And they did. And after that, I got so many letters from Germans. They asked me forgiveness. And one wrote, God says he will punish till in the 3rd and 4th generation. And he said, that's true. My grandfather was the boss of all the railroads. He sent those millions to the camps and the ovens. And my wife's father was your top guy from the SS in Holland, Router, and he said, we can't sleep. We sometimes wake up screaming in the night. But it was his grandfather. And then I wrote him back. I said, but you didn't finish the sentence. It says God will punish in the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me. And this man was suffering. He didn't hate God.
You are tuned into Family Talk, a radio production of the James Dobson Family Institute. The Institute is continuing Dr. Dobson's fight to protect marriages and families and effectively engage culture. Aside from our Family Talk broadcasts, there are 3 other divisions through which we are continuing this battle. The first is through educational partnerships with colleges and universities to better instruct the next generation. Secondly, it's the Dobson Policy Center, which explains how the political arena influences the family. And thirdly, is the online collection of all of Dr. Dobson's work in the Dobson Digital Library. We are excited for this expansion, and we hope you'll stand with us. Learn more at dobsonfamilyinstitute.com. Okay, let's get back now to today's broadcast of Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk.
So German people, when they hear your message, ask you to forgive them. Yeah. And you think they bear a sense of guilt even today for what took place?
This was for me a test when I went to Germany and be surrounded by them. Would the hatred bubble up again?
Yeah.
I spoke in a church and a lady came up to me. She was 51. This was in 96. So she was a baby or hardly born. And the tears streamed down her cheek. And she says to me, there is not a day in my life that I don't have to think of the suffering we caused in the whole world. And I said, you were a baby. And, I met so many of those people, and I ended up with having deep, deep pity, because it's better that it's done to you than that you have done it. And they hadn't even done it.
Well, I want to say to our listeners, I've read this book. It is a page turner. You know what that is? You can't stop reading, and it just pulls you in. It's a fascinating book. There's a great application to what we're going through today. We don't have that kind of oppression, but sin is sin, and it's still represented here, and we're still killing babies, and and we're moving even more and more in the direction of devaluing human life, which is really what was at the base of what occurred there in Holland. One last question. Does it hurt you to see how your native country of Holland has forgotten God?
Terrible, terrible. And really, we thought the resistance people, and I found later out from somebody in the government that the real resistance, and I thought there were so many, were only about 22,000 people. And we really thought that after this war was over, that the world would be a better place, and it didn't work that way. And it's deeply saddening that they have totally, at that time the churches were crowded. If you didn't go early, they sat on the floors, they were hanging, they stood in the portals, and they were
now
crowded.
It's one of the most godless places on the face of the earth. Amsterdam is just an evil city.
And it's so, because, my friends, they say, don't you want to come back? I would never want to live there again. No. I am happy to visit my friends, but
there still are strong Christians there.
The farmers who know where the rain and the sunshine comes from, but the suburbs of the luxurious suburbs, churches are empty. We had always morning and evening services. Long ago, the evening services were closed. And what happens now, they are so empty. So that is the only good thing. The Dutch, they are very, you have only 2 political parties, and you are the third one. But we have, I think, 16 parties. If a Dutch person doesn't agree and they believe strongly, they start a new party. But they do that also with the churches. So we have so many denominations. But now, because of this denomination, I always felt Jesus' last prayer was that they be one. So I don't agree with that. It's wrong. But now, because out of need, they can't pay the heating anymore for 20 people in a big church. So they are getting together for that.
And they're selling those wonderful old cathedrals to Muslims.
Not the old cathedrals, but the regular churches that were maybe
because
built.
They're empty.
They filled them and they sell them to the Muslims. Want to buy them.
Are you praying for a revival in your country?
I hope so much. Well, there is so much to pray for in the Netherlands. And abortion is nothing. Euthanasia is now official. They did it already without, but now it's official.
And they just authorized homosexual marriage, the first country in the world to do that.
I didn't even know that.
And at the time that the Nazis came in, the Germans came into your country, Christianity was almost universal, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the difference between the Catholics and the Protestants, we were all one.
Yeah.
And we all believed in the same God. And we all wanted...
You write in this book about the fact that people didn't even know if it was right before God to resist the German army because they didn't want to displease God.
No, that was one very small group who felt Jesus said, give Caesar what is Caesar's. So they felt when God gives us Hitler, we have to obey. But in our royal family, we have them since 1533, and they were always crowned by the grace of God. They have all been Christians. They fought with us and they financed the war that Spain wanted to bring the Catholic faith by the sword. And then in the Netherlands, we are such free people that the Catholics sided with the Protestants against that power. You can't bring faith by the sword. So we had 80 years war with Spain, and a Protestant prince from Germany financed it all, and they made him the first Prince of Orange. And then now the descendants are still descendants from this wonderful man. And we love them. And really,
when Queen Wilhelmina left Holland, You felt betrayed by her,
Oh,
didn't you?
so many. But see, the Belgian king stayed, and we said, we considered her, you say, the father des Vaderlands. That was the title of the first.
Yeah.
And we felt she was our mother. When there was need, she was always there. And we loved her. Even the communists and the people who would like a republic loved her. But Leopold in Belgium stayed, and he had many palaces, and the Germans told him, you go in that palace, it had a high wall, and he could never speak to his people. But our queen and the whole government, and we were a wealthy country, we had the East Indies, and the national treasury, and the queen didn't want to leave, and the government said, you have to go, you have to go. So she left for England, and then our government was there, and that was the government God given to us, because we had to struggle. Who do we obey? But to us it was so clear. Our government, our ministers, everybody was, and the ministers did not. It was not a flight for fear. They left their wives and children in the Netherlands. They really did it to represent our country. So we obeyed them, and over the radio they gave us instructions, and we did it.
Indeed, having seen so much history as it unfolds, what advice do you have for Americans and Canadians, younger people who haven't been through difficulty and haven't been through oppression? You have anything to say to them?
Well, I would say we don't know what will happen. We don't know the future. But if we have faith, God will show it when the time is there. You don't know it beforehand. Because during my lunchtime, somebody asked, about, I 3 times faced death. I really thought this is going to be my last minute. And something very special, when that comes, God gives you a special grace.
You were prepared to accept it?
23, and when it had happened then, okay, God, if that's your will, it's okay. But when the danger is past, that's taken away. And then later, I had with my hearing again, would they believe me? And there was a 3rd time that I thought this is the end. And every time, when you need it, you get that grace. And I think with the young people too, when you face it, you feel what God's will is. And if you do that, then you get His strength and His blessing. But we don't know beforehand what's going to happen.
Despair is a sin. Do you agree?
Yeah. But it's understandable. I mean, and I think God knows that. Jesus in Gethsemane, he was suffering, and he said, Father, let the cup pass. But he was not in despair, but he was suffering so much.
Sure.
But, suffering
you suffered
causes
too.
despair.
Deet, I appreciate you coming and spending these 2 days with us and for talking to me here. Thank you for being with us.
It was good to be here.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's stay in touch.
It's hard to understand the horrors that Diet Eman has described the past couple of days here on Family Talk. However, we must remember her story and the guidance she offers for enduring great pain and sorrow. Now, if you missed part 1 of her conversation with Dr. Dobson, be sure to go to our broadcast page at drjamesdobson.org. There you'll find a link for her book, Things We Couldn't Say. You'll find that information at drjamesdobson.org. When you go there, click onto the broadcast tab. While you're online, we encourage you to get in touch with us through social media. Like and follow our many accounts by searching for Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. Our profiles are full of engaging and godly content that you'll want to pass on to friends and family. Listen to your favorite radio broadcasts, download Dr. Dobson's newsletter, or read any of the articles that we've posted. Our mission is to support you, your marriage, and your family. The next time you're looking for encouragement on social media, search for Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. And finally, I want to tell you about a simple way to find our broadcast on a station near you. Go to the broadcast menu at drjamesdobson.org and then click onto the Family Talk Radio Stations button. Once you're there, you can see our new interactive map of radio affiliates. Simply click onto the state or country where you live to see where we are playing in your neighborhood. Stop just aimlessly spinning the dial around praying that you'll find us. Go to drjamesdobson.org and take advantage of our Station Finder feature. Thanks again for listening to today's edition of the broadcast. I hope you'll join us again next time for another edition of Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. I'm Roger Marsh. Have a blessed day.
This has been a presentation of the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute.
Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning into our program today. You may know that Family Talk is a listener-supported program, and we remain on the air by your generosity, literally. If you can help us financially, we would certainly appreciate it. God's blessings to you all.
That's right, Dr. Dobson. And friend, thanks to generous listeners like you, Family Talk can reach more and more listeners with practical help and encouragement. To support Family Talk with your best gift, go online to drjamesdobson.org or call 877-732-6825.
Hi, Dr. Tim Clinton for Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. Hey, right now, grab your cell phone, go to your app store, and click on the Dr. James Dobson Family Talk app. Download it right now, and you can start listening anywhere at any time. 24/7, 365.